Welcome to the first of 8 videos from the Roman Army 2021 UofW lecture on appearance, identity, and language. And in this very first video, I just want to say a few things about language use in the military. Okay, so I'll get rid of my face. Bring this up. Okay, so language in the military. So we have lots of documents and evidence that illustrates the various ways that language was used. Language is an important part of military life. Obviously, people need to communicate. The military communication is important in all aspects of life, on the field of combat, which we'll come back to, but also in the day-to-day operations, recording things, and then even in their personal lives, communicating with loved ones and so on. So language is important, and those soldiers, officers who had the ability to use language could be used effectively. We usually think of Latin as the obvious language of the military, and it was obviously in Rome's Republican history, but heading to a bit later too. Latin was extremely important. It's the language of many of the documents we have from the imperial era. I'll just jump slides and I'll come back. So, for instance, from Dura Europos, we have all those papyri, which include official things like the roster of the local unit, the palmarines, lists of men and horses, copy of letters about recruits, and letters assigning horses. So all these sort of official things. But of course, we have the private letters of soldiers too. We'll come back to one of those in a second. So Latin is important. It stayed important right on through to the end of antiquity. This is something, an older translation of something called Maurice's Strategicon, which is a 6th century, late 6th century, like 590 CE military manual. It's all in Greek, but it includes some Latin commands even at that late date when the empire was functioning mostly in Greek, at least officially. Other languages were still spoken. So now Greek was important too. Obviously, we have lots of personal documents and evidence that show Greek being used, even if, as the anecdote sort of highlighted here, Tiberius forbade soldiers from using Greek. Obviously, he didn't sort of hold out, and it seems to have been used in the East, where Greek was the lingua franca for a long time. So even if the bulk of the population didn't speak Greek, in official capacity it was used because of the fallout of Alexander the Great's conquest and various kingdoms that emerged, Ptolemies, Seleucids, etc. So there are, to communicate with the people, we would expect them to use Greek, but also some Latin. You can look at things even getting later down into Egypt, like the Abenaeus Archive, which is the 4th century collection of papyri from Egypt, which shows this officer interacting in Greek. Now, some soldiers had the language ability to move back and forth between Latin and Greek. So there's an anecdote in Apelles' Metamorphoses, or the Golden Ass, in which the soldier attempts to steal the donkey, and he uses both Latin and Greek in his attempt to communicate with the individual. So I shouldn't necessarily expect all soldiers could do that, but some of them certainly could. And some of them could also use Latin and other languages besides Greek, because soldiers came from a variety of different places, and we do occasionally find other languages being used for a variety of things. Now, just sort of one last note. If I scroll down to our 3 soldiers, Titus, Pulo, Aurelius, Paulin, and Flavius Aemilianus. So Titus Pulo would be speaking Latin. He's from Italy, where Latin was the main language, dominant language for a long time. Aurelius Paulion, his language, at least Greek, because the letter that we have of his, of course, is in Greek, writing to his family. Why would you send me letters? So, but probably he would have known some Latin too. And then Flavius Aemilianus, because his inscription is in Latin, though it's put up in Turkey. And in Turkey, at that point, 4th century CE, a lot of the documents are in Greek. So it seems likely that he also knew Greek as well. So yes, Latin official and documents and commands, but a lot of them knew Greek, and then there were all sorts of other languages being used as well.